Tuesday, and welcome back to another episode of MSL Lead Chronicles, where leaders learn from leaders. I'm Mary Morton, and along with my buddy Chad Fellers, we have casual talk about the challenges and successes in medical affairs with the most exciting and impactful professionals in pharma. As always, we have another great one for you today, so stick around.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of MSL Lead Chronicles, where leaders learn from leaders. I'm your host, Chad Fellers, along with my nifty sidekick, Mary Morton. How are you, Mary?
I'm doing great today. How are you?
Good. I mean, you're dressed in leather today. Did you just get off of Harley? What's going on here?
It was 50 degrees this morning when I was getting ready to leave the house to come to the office. So I had to go back in and grab the first coat I could. So that's
okay.
Just happened to grab the no, I don't have a Harley even.
Now, how long have you had that coat? I mean, did you wear that in high school? So it's at least 50 years old or so, or what? Is that right?
No, I did not have it in high school. I was broke in high school. So,
you're broke?
No. I couldn't afford a leather jacket in high school.
You could pull it off either way. You don't look any different than what you did in high school, I'm sure, Mary. So,
oh, that's so funny. That's so funny. That was a good one.
Anyway, I know. Well, hey, so hope you had a good weekend. Hope the listeners hope you had a good week since we last connected. Really excited about our conversation today. Another leadership lesson. And really the topic is something that I think I've grown to really appreciate over my years, thinking about being prepared, putting yourself in positions for opportunities that you don't have to have everything figured out. I think that's the newsflash, right? So with that, let's just go ahead and get into the conversation. Why don't you introduce our guest, Mary? Let's get into this.
I would love to. I am so proud to introduce to everyone who may not already know this awesome person, but if you don't know him already, this is Roland Elwell, the great. Roland is, he's an executive medical director in nephrology with Calliditas. He's been there for about 5 years. And he played a major role in the launch of the very first product approved to treat IgA nephropathy with the launch of Tarpeo. And he has worked in medical affairs for about 20 years. Before he was with Calliditas, we had the great pleasure at Symbio, Nicole placed Roland at Regeneron. And prior to that, he was with Amgen. So Roland is currently residing in North Carolina, but before that, he was in upstate New York. He got his bachelor's and PharmD from the Albany College of Pharmacy, which I just had to correct my daughter that it's Albany and not Albany. Believe it or not, I don't know. She's a college graduate and she doesn't know how to pronounce the name of that city. Anyway. And then he went on to complete his...
Blame her parents, I guess. I don't know.
I know how to say Albany. It's the capital of the state.
Fair enough.
Okay. And he went on to complete his postdoctoral residency and fellowship training with a focus in nephrology. So he is the kidney king. Can we say that? Am I allowed to say that?
The kidney king? The great and the kidney king. I mean,
it is not in
Roland.
my notes. I just came up with that.
That's really good.
I mean, you may already be known as the kidney king. So welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Well, thanks, Mary. Thanks, Chad. I have never been called Roland the Great or the Kidney King before. However, I'm going to update my CV immediately after we get
pretty
done
good
today. So I appreciate that. That is very flattering. And but I do love nephrology, and I have really enjoyed my time in medical affairs, and I'm excited to talk to you guys today. So thank you.
Awesome. Okay, so if you've seen any of our episodes, you know that we get it going with some random questions, but one predictable one, which is if you're familiar with baseball and baseball players, when they go up to the plate, they always have a walk-up song. So what do you think your walk-up song would be? And would you play it with one of those amazing actors behind you?
Good.
Yeah. So I have actually had the privilege of choosing a walk-up song at some of our sales meetings at Calliditas. And it's funny because we usually have the same audiovisual company that does that for our meetings. And now they don't even ask me. They just play it when I go up there, which makes me feel even cooler than that. But it's
The
Highway to
Great,
Hell.
like the Great.
Yeah, it's
The
Highway
Great
to
Roland.
Hell by AC/DC.
What?
And
Highway to
I
Hell?
just love that the opening riff of it. It starts with that cool drum beat, and then that guitar kicks in, and it just makes for a really good entrance, I believe. And it sounds cooler than it really is because I stole it from Megamind. The cartoon
Oh,
movie
yeah.
Megamind.
Yeah.
When he takes the stage to tell the town that he's taking over, that's what they're playing. So
But wasn't Megamind like taking them on the highway to hell?
he kind of did, yes. But it's my artistic impression is that's
That's
not what
right.
I'm doing. So yeah.
Okay. Yes. Yes.
He's
Gotcha.
living his truth, Mary. Come on, give him a break.
Okay. All right.
You asked the question. Okay.
Sometimes a cool
Okay, next.
song is just a cool song.
That's right.
I love
It
it.
is
So
what it
you could
is.
totally go out there with one of those guitars and play that on your way out. Have you ever thought of doing that?
I have played at some of our sales meetings, but haven't played Highway to Hell.
What about
Okay.
like Welcome to the Jungle? Like that opening of Welcome to the Jungle would be pretty cool to kind of kick things off as well too.
Yeah.
Would be good.
We'll ask your walk-up song another time, Chad. This is not about you
I
today.
wasn't saying that would be mine, but anyway, okay, all right, fair enough.
All right, next question. If your calendar could talk, what would it complain about the most?
It would complain about travel. I just
Okay.
literally looked at my calendar 10 minutes before joining this call to see what's coming up in the next 2 months. And I'm going to be away more than I'm going to be home. Now, I like to
Oh,
travel and I enjoy it. But there are weeks where I'm coming home for a day before I pack another suitcase and head out. So a lot of travel coming up.
Okay.
it's hard for me to put my stuff up from travel in a day when I get home, much less have to unpack and pack something else again too. That's a lot of travel.
Yeah.
Roland.
Yeah.
So if you had to give a masterclass on something ridiculous and unrelated to medical affairs, what would it be?
Ridiculous and unrelated to medical affairs. I'm going to go with amplifier building, tube amplifiers, guitar amplifiers.
Right. So can
can
you
build
build a
one?
tube amplifier?
So about a month ago, I went to a workshop, another part of North Carolina. I built my own tube amplifier from a pile of parts. So it was 2 days of soldering and lectures on electronics, which most of it I forgot, but I can put the thing together. So, anyway, it's back there. Trust me, I built it myself and it works.
That is awesome. I've
That's
known
really
so many
cool.
musicians in the industry. Some of them that they go take luthier classes and learn how to build their own guitars. So I think that's awesome. I've never met anybody that's built their own amp.
Yeah, I got really into electronics for a while. I don't know if you know enough about guitars, but electric guitar players usually have effect pedals. It's a box that you plug your guitar into.
Yep.
I've built hundreds of those over the past 10 years.
Like pedal boards or the pedals themselves?
The pedals themselves, like, buying little resistors and capacitors and integrated circuit chips and
Wow.
soldering it all together and wiring up the box. And so
I used to call them wah-wah boards.
Oh, wah-wah is a kind of a pedal.
it is
Oh,
one
okay.
type
You
of
can do it with the bar on the guitar now too, though.
Yeah.
Okay.
But there's distortion pedals, overdrive pedals, digital delays, analog delays, chorus, flanger, all kinds of. It's never ending.
And they all have ridiculous names. So the pedals that you have built, did you give them funny names?
Well,
Like Fuzzbuster, that's one of them that's in my house.
yeah, no, I usually just give them generic names based on what they do. I'm more into playing them than trying to market and sell them.
Oh my gosh, I got to get us back on track. I could just sit and talk about this all
I want
day.
to edit some of this out. This is too much information about
No, it's
electronics.
good. It's good.
No, I think it's fascinating. I think that's one of the things also that we learn about. So many people in industry have similar interests. I know so many musicians, so many guitar players, so many songwriters. I mean, there's an MSL that I know who he records and plays house music. And then he'll play it at art museums or at clubs.
Wow.
And then he also manages an MSL team. So you never know.
Well,
okay, now that we've all gotten to know Roland a little bit better and all his cool hobbies, what we are going to get into today and the concept of our discussion with Roland and his takeaway, I guess, as it were, is maybe you don't have to decide who you're going to be forever when you're 28 years old. And maybe it's not 28, maybe it's a different number, but you know, it doesn't have to be all planned out. So
lucky for me.
Yeah. I mean, you can do anything.
You and me both, Roland. I mean, I think I'm always fascinated to hear people's stories, right? So tell us a little bit about I'd love to hear a little bit about your journey from graduation on, if you want to give us a quick snapshot that shows us a little bit of the path that you've taken.
Yeah.
Sure. Happy to do that. So, I was already a little bit late getting to college. I was in my late 20s when I started pharmacy school. And, that was after a fun period of life, playing in bands on weekends, working lots of different kinds of jobs. But at one point, I got a little more mature. I fell in love with a pretty girl who I wanted to get married to, and I figured I needed to get a real job. So through a series of major changes, I ended up in pharmacy school. And, to the sort of theme that we're talking about, I think a lot of folks, when you start pharmacy school, you think you're going to be a retail pharmacist or a hospital pharmacist. And that's kind of, at least for me, that was my view of the world of pharmacy. And by the time I finished pharmacy school, I'd already determined that I did not want to work retail pharmacy. And I had taken on the first of many great mentors that I've had during my professional life, who was a nephrology guy. And he was one of my professors at Albany College of Pharmacy. His name is George Bailey, and he is an amazing, smart, and really cool guy. And so I wanted to be like him. And so I decided I was going to pursue an academic career. That's why I did the residency and the fellowship. The fellowship brought me back to Albany, New York, to work with George at the Albany College of Pharmacy. And after the fellowship, I was fortunate enough to get a assistant professor position at that college. And so now I was doing what at least my most recent career goal was to do that. And I was doing it with my mentor, which was amazing. And things were going pretty well. But at the same time, I didn't really feel like, I was doing research. I enjoyed doing research, but I didn't feel like I was on a mission. Like, I think a lot of successful researchers, they are very passionate about answering a question or a series of questions.
Yeah.
And I didn't have that feeling. I felt like I was doing research to make tenure, but not necessarily because I felt super strong about the research I was doing. And during that time, I ended up making the switch to industry. I had made friends with a local sales rep in the Albany area. Amgen had just come out with a new drug, Sensipar, to treat secondary hyperparathyroidism in dialysis patients. And I had my students do a project. I'll, try to tell the short version. But the project my students did led to a bunch of patients at the local dialysis unit getting put on this new drug. Well, now I'm the local sales rep best friend. Um, if so she took me out to lunch. I started speaking for Amgen, which was a lot of fun. And one of the things that I learned as a faculty member at the college and then in industry is that I like to talk. I'm always happy to stand up in front of a group and talk about something. And so anyway, a little bit of time went by, and one day I got a call from this person saying, "Hey, we need a new MSL. I think you'd be great at that." And I said, I would never work for a pharmaceutical company, but tell me more about it, and had a meeting with the hiring manager soon after that. And not much longer after that, I was a MSL at Amgen doing nephrology. Now, I had to learn the industry side of things, but fortunately, I already knew the therapeutic side of it very well.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of the first example of, I was going this way. I was on a mission. I was moving forward. I was doing what I thought I wanted to do, and I was doing it pretty well. But this other opportunity kind of came out of nowhere that I wasn't looking for. And this was now 20 years ago. So in hindsight, that was a really good decision, in my opinion, going to Amgen. And I worked there for about 9 years. And you know, the drugs were getting older in their life cycle at Amgen. The culture was shifting a little bit there. And I had an opportunity to go to Regeneron. And that's when I met Nicole and Mary at SymBio. And I had a chance to go to Regeneron to work as an MSL launching their PCSK9 inhibitor to treat hypercholesterolemia. And fortunately, I had already been working on a PCSK9 inhibitor at Amgen because they also were developing one. They didn't have a dedicated team for that, and so the nephrology team was cross-covering. So I
They didn't. I didn't remember that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I learned the science, never really taking it too seriously because it wasn't my day job, so to speak. But when my view of taking things seriously maybe isn't the same as others, because even though I didn't take it seriously, I really knew it inside and out. And so when I interviewed at Regeneron, it was a no-brainer. That and the fact that I already knew the leadership at Regeneron, because the head of medical affairs at Regeneron used to work at Amgen. And so it was, a stretch for me personally to sort of change my therapeutic identity, kind of, and that I may be making that sound more dramatic than it really was. But, I viewed myself as a nephrology guy. That was my strength. That's what I do. And again, now I'm going to do something else because a new opportunity came along that I wasn't necessarily looking for. And I had a lot of fun at Regeneron. It was the place to work in my view at that time. I got exposed to some really great leaders who became, more mentors in my life. And after being at Regeneron I was there for 7 years, about halfway through, I got an opportunity to take on a leadership role. And I became the director for Dupixent, which, is an immunology drug with a never-ending list of new indications. And I was
involved.
Have
you ever heard of that one? Have you ever heard of that drug?
Blockbuster. The blockbuster of our generation. It really is. The blockbuster of our generation.
And with a lot of help from SymBio, I built the respiratory team to launch Dupixent in asthma. And I got to work with, again, some great leaders who were very formative and the leader that I wanted to become. And I was a director on the Dupixent team for about 3 years, I would say, when, similar to what happened at Amgen, the culture kind of started to shift. And, and these things happen. It's part of the life cycle I'm learning of a company, right? And I'm going to keep this meeting positive, though. So that's all I'm going to say. And my boss at Regeneron ended up leaving. And he went to a little company that I'd never heard of before called Calliditas, a Swedish company that was getting ready to launch the very first drug for IgA nephropathy, as Mary said earlier. And, so I called him up and I said, Warren, I'm a nephrology guy. And he says, well, I knew that. And I really hope you would call, because I wasn't going to poach you. But since you've come to me, we would love to have you join us at Calliditas. And that was about 5 years ago now. And during that time, my title has changed like 4 times. If you look at my LinkedIn profile, but only 2 of those, I think, were actual promotions.
How many business cards do you have from there, just out of curiosity?
It's funny. I'm still using business cards from 2 titles ago,
That's
and
hilarious.
so I'm a little behind in updating that. But so I started off as a director, and then I became head of, and then I became executive director of field medical. But in February this year, there was some internal changes, and they approached me to become the executive medical director for nephrology. And again, that's something that I never really saw coming. During my time at Calliditas, I've really worked hard to become a therapeutic expert. And in hindsight, I can see that a lot at a lot of our medical affairs leadership meetings. I was driving strategy. I've kind of become the medical spokesperson. I like to say I'm the chief storytelling officer. If somebody has to go talk at a meeting, let's make Roland do it because he likes to do it. And so anyway, I think it's a great fit. But again, it's not. You know, if you had asked me 20 years ago when I was first starting at Amgen if I thought I would ever be a medical director, much less the executive medical director, I'm not an MD. In those days, only MDs got those
Yeah.
jobs.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
so it's been a wild ride. And I often tell folks when they ask me for advice, young people who are looking for career advice, I always say, have a goal, work hard toward it, but keep your eyes and ears open because there could be something over there that you didn't even know was going to be there that might end up being the best decision you ever made.
Well, and one of the things comes to my mind, first question that comes to mind is take yourself back to when you were in pharmacy school. You had this retail was on your brain. What was there a moment that or before this moment that you had this revelation of maybe pursuing something different? Would you say that you were a risk taker or did you always have a plan? Did you always have a plan in place of what you wanted to do? Right. I guess what I'm getting at is, did you have to learn this process of being flexible and realizing that there are more aspects of something that you can look at, right? The different faces. I always say it's the different faces of pharmacy for me, right? I've been able to see it in retail, PBM, manage, all those different things, and now industry. I'm just curious, like, was that just a thought process you already had, or have you learned to develop that skill over the years?
Well, I would say that, and it's the way you frame the question, I might not have given the same answer, but now that I'm really thinking about it, I guess I've always been kind of a risk taker. I mean, you know, I wanted to be a rock star when I was 19 years old. Um,
Yeah.
so I don't know if that's being a risk taker or just kind of an idiot. I don't know, but just because you know it's it was a big dream without you know rationally what is the likelihood of success.
Yeah.
I think firmly you got to be in it to win it, right? The
Yeah.
chances of success are zero if you don't try. But
Yeah.
I think I've always been kind of willing to take a little bit of a risk. And but in a defining moment for me in retail, so while I was playing in a rock band, before I went to college, I worked for an insurance company. That was one of the many,
Hmm.
I've been a pizza maker, I've been a dishwasher, I've done a lot of different things. But I was working for an insurance company, and part of that job was taking phone calls from folks who wanted to complain about their insurance, right? And I took a lot of those phone calls over the course of a
Yeah.
few years.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they filed a claim, and the insurance company didn't cover it as much or at all or the way they thought it should be. So I listened to a lot of those complaints. And then fast forward, I'm in pharmacy school. I'm working at a retail pharmacy chain in the evenings. Um, Even during after I first graduated and I'm doing residency now, I'm working as a pharmacist part time on the weekends. At some point during that, I had a customer in front of me complaining about their insurance, and then I had to call the insurance company. And I realized that I still had the same job. I was just on the other end of the phone.
Yeah.
Like I had done all
Yeah.
this work to go to college to become a pharmacist, but I'm still on the phone talking
Yeah.
about insurance issues. And
Yeah.
so I think that was a moment where I was like, yeah, there's got to be something more fun than this. Now, one of the nice things about pharmacy school is, you enter with a very narrow view, at least I did. But as time goes on, you realize more and more how many great opportunities there
Yeah.
are. And the last thing that I'll say in response to your question is I can remember talking with my wife. I was an older student. We got married after the first year of pharmacy school. And at one point, we were just talking, and I said, I have a feeling that there's something else out there that I'm going to end up doing, but I just don't know what it is. And,
Yeah.
I don't know if that was a prophetic moment but it turned out to be true in the long run. So,
I mean, I think it kind of is prophetic in a few
Yeah.
ways, you put yourself in situations where the opportunities can find you.
yeah,
You work hard and do it earnestly and honestly, and like you said, keep your ears and eyes out for the opportunities that are going to allow you to expand. I think that your story about thinking it was retail or hospital, I think that's a very common story. I think um, not enough pharmacy schools out there are doing enough to help people know what their careers could be. I mean, I think even my school down here down the road that matches Chad's chair, I think they still don't do a great job. We're actually going to be at a career event on the 20th to try to talk more about medical affairs opportunities for the
and I
students,
feel
so
like,
they
yeah,
can pick their courses appropriately to prepare them for something
Yeah.
like that.
for me, I felt there was even a little bit of a bias against the pharmaceutical industry by
Sure.
the faculty members that, you know, your teachers in school, they chose academia, right? And so you're kind of getting, it's a selection bias. They're,
Hmm.
of course, everybody loves what they do, right? And so one of the things that was helpful was when you finally get to your year of clerkship rotations, that's when you really get to spend time with some folks that are working in other settings. So,
So whenever you when you moved over to Regeneron and um, you became a people leader, um, was that something that was a developmental path that you had chosen? Did somebody tap you on the shoulder and say, "You're great with people. You're a great mentor. You should take the next step"? Or was that something that you had planned for yourself?
yeah, so that's a really good question, Mary. And it wasn't something that I had planned. I, for the most part, you know, leading up to that time period, I thought I would never want to do that, right? Being a people leader, I always believe that, you know, there's the analogy, if you promote your best forklift driver, um, now not only do you have a bad leader, but you just lost your best forklift driver, right? And and I
That's
was
so good.
I
That's so
was
good.
very happy to be really good at being an individual contributor. But there was a time, I think it's kind of life, as I got older, a little tiny bit maybe more mature. Uh, you know, at this point in my life, I had children that were doing okay. They weren't out of the house yet, but they weren't babies anymore. So I didn't feel like my home life was quite as demanding. But there was a moment where we were at a company meeting in Orlando. Now I'm a huge Disney person, and that's like a topic for another podcast. Maybe that's something else I could give a lecture on is Disney vacation planning. But we were in Orlando. We were at the meeting hotel, and one of the probably the best medical affairs leader, not no probably, absolutely the best medical affairs leader that I've ever worked with. Mary, you might already know who I'm going to say, but it's Doug Anderson.
Doug Anderson.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I had worked with Doug at Amgen, and then he went to Regeneron a couple years before I did. And and even my managers at Regeneron were, they were, Doug's disciples, if you will, And so we were at this meeting. We had a breakout for just the cardiovascular group. We're all sitting in a room, and Doug comes in to share some updates with us. And he tells us that, they're looking to hire a new director to build the respiratory team for Dupixent. And it might have been my imagination, but I could have swore Doug looked right at me in the eye when he said this. Now, I have another friend who felt the same exact thing during that meeting. And I think
it was just gas, apparently, by your
yeah,
friend,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Just
yeah.
gas.
Yeah. So, but ultimately, I think that Doug was basically suggesting to the two of us that we should consider it, and it's that thing, where once your eyes are open to the possibility of something, you'll never be content to go back. There's a quote in there. I don't remember who said it, but so I started thinking about it. And at this point, I recognized that the reason that I had had such a great experience working in medical affairs was because of great leaders. And even when the culture of the company was shifting, as I've alluded to, those leaders made sure that that didn't impact me as much as it might have, right? And so at this point, I felt kind of a little bit of an obligation, but also a desire to be that person for for the next group of field medical people at that company. And so, it was kind of taking the torch from Doug and others that I had known and trying to be that type of leader for a new group of people.
So I have never met Doug. I don't know, but I saw Mary, I saw your face light up about this. I guess, Roland, one of the questions, what was it that was so attractive about Doug's leadership? And is there a certain thing that you've worked to make sure that you've been able to pull through your leadership based on what you learned from him?
Yeah, I hope he sees this, but I also hope he's not too he's a super humble guy, and that's one of the things that's so great about him. But it all boils down to servant leadership, which is a scary thing to say out loud because it's a high standard. It's to say that you're a servant leader is almost proves you're not. You know what I mean? But to actually be one, it's a high bar. And so for Doug and for you know Warren Brooks and Mike Wooten and other folks that I've worked for, these guys are humble, they're genuine, and they actually care about you just as much as they care about the business objectives. And so it's being honest, it's being fair, it's making sure that people feel appreciated and seen and heard, and that it's not just about metrics or making yourself look good to your boss. You know.
Well, what I picked up on that is when you described Doug and like Mike and Warren, and you should describe yourself with this, is to say that they're humble people. And then you go on to say servant leadership is a high standard. And obviously only a humble person would say something like that.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think that definitely, and I know we're usually picking at each other, but I know I don't want your head to go, but
no.
Chad is a servant leader too, and he's humble as well.
I haven't always,
I'm surrounded by greatness right now.
I think it's more from the person that's on your right than on your left. Yeah, the king. Yeah, it took me a while, Roland, to figure out what that was, right? And the magic of what that is. I mean, I think I was a pretty good manager beforehand, but there's a difference between, managing can be a part of the leadership responsibilities, but you can't say it in the inverse, right? I mean, I think manager is such a limiting type of thing, and it really is. To me, it feels like it's more self-fulfilling than it is a giving away, right, and development of others as well too. And there's magic especially when you have terminal degree people that will come together and realize, hey, I don't have to try to one up anybody. I don't have to defend my work. I don't have to try to climb the ladder. I don't have to do those things. I can really serve others and get satisfaction out of that, and the opportunities can still come as well too. So yeah, I think it's a tenet that we should all try to model, right? That it's not about perfection, right? But it is about a pursuit, I think.
That's right.
So,
That's right. It's aspirational.
yep.
And,
Yep. Really good.
I should, point out or continue my story a little bit because, you know, I've been focused on the past, but there's still some really cool stuff coming for Caliditas and for myself. You know, we were acquired a couple years ago now by Asahi Kasei, and it won't be long until there is no more Caliditas. We're about to change our name. I'm not at liberty to share that name just yet, but keep an eye on LinkedIn. I'm sure there'll be a lot of posts about that. But now, I've been working very closely with the Veloxis team. So Veloxis is another company that Asahi Kasei owns in the United States, and we've been integrated with Veloxis. And actually, my current boss, Steve, he's a Veloxis employee. But I've had a great opportunity as we're forming really what's going to be a brand new company in the near future. And so again, I never saw that coming, but this combination of, you know, focus, but being willing to, you know, have some peripheral vision too, to see those opportunities that are coming along. And as I've said, I've gotten to work and I continue to get to work with some really great leaders and amazing people. So I think it all kind of boils down to that's what makes work life good, right? Is
So, what's giving you the confidence to be able to step into these new roles, right? That's unknown as far as kind of what your expertise is in, right? I mean, you can talk about it going to Regeneron, you can talk about it transitioning to people leadership, you can talk about it to even going from a people leader to a director role, right? I mean, all these different things. What's knowing you're already cognizant enough that you don't have all the answers, you don't have it all figured out, like what it entails or the details of how to get things together. Like, if I've never done medical director work, so how would I put together a SIMPO, right, for an upcoming Congress without having that exposure? But talk a little bit about how you approach that, approach the unknown, and what set you up for success to be able to be successful in the roles during those transitions. Would love to hear more about that.
Yeah. There's a lot of things that come to mind as I'm listening to the question. And, one of the things that Mary and I talked about sort of pre-call is the imposter syndrome, right? And
Yeah.
I think that I've had the imposter syndrome so many times that I've gotten to the point where I can live with it. You know what I mean? Like, I can remember when I first became a faculty member. Uh, I should. How am I a teacher out of college? They're going to figure out I don't know what I'm doing, and I'll be out of here pretty soon, right? And I jokingly say the first thing is to fake it till you make it, but but you can't fake it forever. So, but I've learned that no matter what comes along, as long as you ask for help and you're sincerely trying to be successful and making sure you understand your responsibilities, that so far I've managed to get it done. So in my new role, which really is in some ways a stretch, but also a logical progression of things I was already doing at the
Yeah.
company. Again, it's been great that I wasn't looking for this role. My current boss came to me and said, "I think that you would be a really good fit for this," and he's given me the permission or the freedom to that I don't need to know everything today or next month.
Yeah.
And he's there for me when I need the help. And I wouldn't have taken this job if I didn't think that he was going to support me through the transition. And
Yeah.
so anyway, I think first of all, fake it till you make it. But that's, again, it's not really about faking it. It's just trusting yourself that you're going to make it. You
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
but
think,
oh,
oh,
I'm
go
sorry.
ahead. No, no,
Well,
go.
I was gonna kind of make a music analogy. Um,
Sorry,
is
Mom.
that like I wouldn't go on stage with an electric guitar and think I could play the way you can, or John Mayer can, or, you know, Stevie Ray Vaughan. But you have, you can because, well, first of all, you play guitar, but let's just say you only kind of play guitar. If you know enough music theory, then you can work out a solo. Um, but you also understand the concepts beneath it, and somebody has prepared you for that. Maybe yourself, maybe somebody else. So I mean, I would assume nobody would take a job they have zero idea of how to accomplish. But if you have somebody that believes in you and has prepared you, you don't want to go into a job where you know 100% of what to do anyway, because then where's the challenge and where's the fun?
yeah, yeah. And
So,
that was part of my excitement about taking on this new role, is that, and I get to reinvent myself a little bit again. I get to climb another hill, and so I don't. Life would be boring if you just avoided all risks and never tried to
Yeah.
grow or do new things. But to your musical analogy, Mary, it's a really good analogy, because you can get up there with a
see,
guitar and play three basic chords and still make music that people like. Um,
Yeah.
there are well-known bands that have made careers out of doing that, but over
they call it
time,
three chords in the truth. If you've ever,
yeah,
that's what they
yeah,
call country music, three
yeah.
chords in the
But
truth.
over time, you can still improve. You can learn new chords, and you can maybe eventually get to play a solo over the top of them. But if you never get up there, uh, that's not much of a life.
Well, I mean, I think
I
the
totally agree.
challenge, the challenge I see in many of people in leadership positions is the higher they climb, that the self-imposed expectation of having to know all the answers, or not asking people for help, or surrounding themselves with people that can help them perform well or show them the way. There's a resistance to that, and I think that goes back to one of the qualities. Seeing like, could you even, you don't have to tell stories about this, but like when you think about Doug, right? I mean, how did he position himself, right? Did he have all the answers every time? Was he honest with you and said, "Hey, I don't know, let's go figure this out together," or, "Hey, that's a great question, let me get back with you"? I mean, why do we quit asking questions the older we get, or even in the positions that we get? So, having your approach, I think, is certainly another secret to your success, whether you would say it or not. I mean,
Yeah,
it's keeping that curiosity. That the number one trait I look for when I'm trying to hire people, right, is, I mean, how curious are they? Um, and don't ever lose that, right? That can empower you in so many different ways. So, okay. All right. So
yeah. Well,
this has been
let
really,
me add one thing, and that
yeah,
is, it's okay to, again, I'm on Mary's music analogy. It's okay to get up there and bomb once in a while too.
yeah,
It's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to fall on your face.
that's right.
That's that's
Freedom to
unavoidable.
fail,
Yeah,
and then giving your team the freedom. That's where the magic happens, or can happen, right? If you don't give yourself a freedom to do that, you restrict yourself, and you limit your opportunities, and you limit the potential impact that you can have, or others can have as well too, if you don't give them the freedom to do that. Mary, it looks like you're dying to say something.
No, I'm trying to not say it, but I'll say it. I ha I can play some acoustic guitar. I would never try to do an electric. My daughter is incredible at playing guitar. But at my birthday party, my 50th birthday party, we had a band
Several
there.
years
It's
ago.
7 years ago. And so the band, they're called the Rex. And so they're moderately well known in the alt rock world. Um, and so they brought me on stage to play tambourine. And that is my Achilles heel. I cannot figure out the rhythm of tambourine. It's not as easy as it looks, Chad. No. You can't just, no, stop. Anyway, I could not get it. I could not get it. I could not
It's
get
on
it.
2 and 4. 2 and 4, Mary. It's all you gotta remember.
There's a.
I mean,
Anyway.
we can listen. We can set up a master class after this, maybe, and work on this, Mary.
There's probably a YouTube video you could watch.
I'm sure.
And I have my own tambourine.
I'm sure you could.
Santa Claus brought me like right after that as a kind of a joke because I could not get the exact rhythm. I mean, I can get the rhythm. I just can't get the downbeat right. Anyway,
well,
so that was what I was not going to say that on.
Maybe you delete it. I don't know. No, you keep it in here because people need to understand that we all have struggles, and apparently yours is with the tambourine. All right, so Roland, this has been really good and wrapping things up. Thanks for chatting with this about this topic, sharing your story.
And hopefully people are not going to be afraid to try stuff.
That's my hope as well, too. Thinking about this, I got one reflection question, one more that I want to ask you. So has there been anything that you've learned in your journey about yourself once you became a leader that you didn't know about yourself? Like what have you learned?
Wow, that's a good question. I guess, it would come down to the theme that we've been, kind of the theme behind everything we've been talking about is that I can do more than I thought I could do. It's whether it was playing music, whether it was working at a college or in medical affairs, don't underestimate yourself. And I think that, I've probably done that a lot in my life.
Yeah.
I think maybe the reason that I held off on pursuing leadership opportunities was partly because I didn't think I was the right person for that, and again, it's this idea of not only don't underestimate yourself, but don't paint yourself into a corner. Just don't. Your job is not your identity, and your work identity may not even. It shouldn't limit you. Doesn't mean you can't do other things.
Thank you for being vulnerable about that. I mean, I really do think it's very insightful. I think sometimes our biggest barrier is ourselves, right? And whether it's how we carry ourselves, we can be our worst critic at times as well too. I mean, you think about social media, all those things, everything's going against, it's more negative types of things. And we have thoughts sometimes about, hey, this just won't work, or I don't have what it takes. And so I really like that you started thinking more about not no because, but yes if, I guess, even from that type of mindset. So thank you for sharing. Thanks for sharing your journey. It's good I've learned a lot from this about approaches to take. I'm thinking that you wanted to be, I guess what keeps sticking with me as we wrap things up. Even to a challenge to the listeners, right? So Roland, you wanted to be like George Bailey, right? And so I guess the question for myself, for others as well too, other leaders, is like, what actions am I or are you taking to where others want to be like you, right? So, I mean, what can we do? What can we model to where others want to be? Not that we think that too highly of ourselves, but it's so contagious that we model it in a way that there'd be others that want to be imitators of that because of the impact in other people's lives, right? So how do we do that? How can we continue to advance and support one another? So having that mindset. So I appreciate the challenge. I want to be a George. I want to be a George Bailey to someone. So, and Roland, it's clear that you've been that to several people. So thanks for sharing a little bit of your journey. Thanks for encouraging me through this as well too. I've really learned a lot.
Yeah. Well, it's been a pleasure, Chad. And I was a little bit surprised because I thought what you were going to say that you took away from this conversation was that you need more guitars. But I'm glad it was a little deeper than that.
Listen, I mean, it wouldn't hurt. Why not have another guitar? I played trumpet all the way through high school or through college. So, and never got past an acoustic guitar. And then didn't do great at that. So wish I would have held on to it a little bit longer, but it's definitely a great life skill to have. And,
if you need a horn section in your band, he lives in Little Rock. It's not that far away.
I love that you can think out of both sides of your brain, apparently too, as well, Roland. So, thanks again. Look forward to having you back. I don't know if we'll do a Disney podcast. I mean,
why not?
We could do a live podcast from Epcot as we drink around the world.
Well, now you've got me thinking about this. All right. It's down. All right. Thank you. Thanks so much, listeners, for joining us for another casual conversation on MSL Lead Chronicles, where leaders learn from leaders. Continue to learn a lot. Continue to ask questions, to surround yourself with others that can encourage you, who can be that George Bailey, and who can you be that George Bailey too. So until next time, lead well.